Yeah. It's more like piranhas and crocodiles at the same time. Yeah, it's not easy. It really isn't. And then I have to. Maybe it's partially my fault for kind of like volunteering to do this, but I do some of the zoning work we do in the company, and so I have to go to all the planning and zoning board meetings, and they're just, some are cut and dry and some are just very arduous. So that adds to the entire experience. But I don't know, I just maybe I'll become a professional weather watcher for the the National Weather Service, which amounts to just reporting temperatures and weather at a certain location the rest of my life. I don't know. That would be just fine with me at this point. I need something a little less indoor, computer related. Well, I guess everything's computer related now. Oh my gosh. What am I saying? Well, anyway, enough droning about that. I've managed to get this FT757 into a functional state. I haven't tried the transmitter yet, but I cleaned it up. I replaced, like I said, the memory battery today. And last time I worked on it, I found a FET in the receiver chain that was poorly soldered. It's no longer intermittent. And let's see, the first thing I found was, the tuning knob was completely frozen. It was rusted in place. So I ended up doing that and completely de-rustifying it, if that's a word. And that's all working great now. And cleaned all the pots. Receiver works great. Just got to try the transmitter next. And I don't have a microphone. I have to see if I can scare up a microphone for this. But it's a nice little compact radio, 160/10. And it'll be good, a good kick around radio just for maybe field day or whatever, taking out whatever. A Go Box radio. AB2RA. Up there in the New York Finger Lakes, I guess, somewhere up there. This WX3K.
Yeah, it's if you draw a line between the two biggest lakes at the bottom, Cayuga and Seneca Lake, Ithaca on the eastern end and Seneca Lake on the other end. I'm about halfway between Ithaca and Watkins Glen out in flyover country. Yeah, there's a lot of satisfaction in getting an older piece of equipment. And, those earlier solid-state radios actually were pretty decent. The ones before the phase lock loops were the best. I have a Ten-Tech Corsair, and I love that radio. Full break MCW, coverage of 160 in all the work bands, and with a decent mic, I actually get unsolicited compliments on the audio as well. But no AM, no how. Ten-Tech didn't believe in it. The one thing I am enjoying about this DX60, comparing it to the ICO 720, because primarily I think I'll be using this on CW, is it has grid block keying. And it's actually pretty well engineered for what it is. And the screen modulation doesn't work half bad either. I mean, you know, it doesn't. It certainly wouldn't compare to the plate modulation on the ICO. I'll stack an ICO 720 up against a Ranger any day. The 720, 730 combination sounds way better, and frankly, a better built radio. AB2RA.
Okay. I have a Ranger, an older Ranger here, which originally got me back on AM. And it's sitting in a rack over here. Whoops. Jeez. I was going to use it as an exciter for the amplifier I have here, which just sitting there, waiting for me. Someday. And it worked. Didn't have the greatest audio, of course. It wasn't really fully modified. It was somewhat modified. The audio chain needs a little more Timtronization. Yeah, that's what it is. It needs some Timtronization. And I'm happy with the ICO, the way it's been running. Now that I put the final, or replaced the final in it, perfect. It's much better. I was really having my doubts about it before that. And the next step up is one of the other two rigs, like I was just mentioning, with the what is this? The James Millen amp. And I also have a 4-400 deck, which I got through an estate, which was totally homebrew, and it's just beautiful. The meters are just so perfectly lined up, and the mechanical construction assembly was just absolutely stunning. The ham/engineer that I got it from, his Silent Key, was just truly an amazing home brewer, and that will come on the air at some point. Like I said, I only have so much time to do things and with a job, so hopefully maybe someday I'll have some more time. Indeed. So I'm just sipping here on my pistachio latte. That's my drink of choice until they run out of stock of it. I think they're almost out of it. I'm going to have to switch over to something else. But I'm sure you have plenty of good things to partake on in the area up by you in the Finger Lakes. I haven't been up in that area. I did a wine tour there many years ago with a group of people, and I haven't been back there since, really. But maybe someday again. Back to you.
WA3VJB, good afternoon.
Oh, hi, WA3VJB. Stephanie, turn it over to VJB on the next round. Yeah, some of this gorgeous homebrewed stuff, we'll never see that again. Of course, the pool of parts is rapidly disappearing, and the number of people that are competent to do a decent job like that. But when you see something like that that is, a real craftsman, an artisan has done it so beautifully that it's indistinguishable from commercially made, it's just, it's a joy to own something like that. And I think running the Ranger into that would sound pretty nice. And the Finger Lakes are still beautiful. I like it out in the rurals. Watkins Glen is very nice. Gets a little crowded on the race weekends, but I really enjoy it when they have the vintage races. Sometimes Don and I will go over there. It's a little diner that we really like, and we'll have breakfast or lunch and just watch for the vintage cars. I owned a Triumph TR4 and an MG and a Sunbeam Tiger, which was quite a car. I had a high performance 289 stuck in a two-seat. Well, it looked like an Alpine. If you ever saw Get Smart, that was a car that Maxwell Smart, the spy, drove in that TV series. Ithaca's becoming much more like New York City. A lot of street crime, drugs, crazy crap going on down there, and Don and I try to avoid it as much as we can. WX3K with WA3VJB, AB2RA. Over.
Yeah, hi, Janice. Hello, Stephanie. WA3VJB. Happy 311 Day. Fortuitous moment to mention the fact that the Datsun SPL 311 two-seater convertible came out on this date, kind of symbolically. It first showed at the 1961 Tokyo Auto Show, so it beat the MGB to market. I've had about 6 or 7 of them over the years. I still have one that I've had since 1984. Excellent power-to-weight ratio. So you're mentioning of your Triumph and your MG, and of course the Sunbeam Alpine, or the Tiger, speaks closely to my heartstrings there, Janice. I didn't realize you had those. Yeah, Get Smart, the early episodes had the Sunbeam, and then the later episodes, which were sponsored in part by Volkswagen, featured a Carmen Ghia convertible. So you got to go to the older episodes to find the Sunbeam coming up to the curb there. Is Maxwell Smart steps smartly out of the vehicle. Hey, I've been listening for a while. Stephanie, I have to say, I never even noticed any degradation in your audio or your signal with the soft tube in your 720. So it wasn't apparent to us out here, your audience, but you're sounding very good today, as usual, I'll have to say. And very good on the homebrew rig that you've got there, the 4400 rig. Now, you're both correct in saying that that kind of craftsmanship probably will never come back again. There are a couple of people who, in more recent years, had done so, still building homebrew rigs to the kind of standard we remembered seeing from the 1950s. I wasn't around yet, but I still have an artifact from 1953. It turns 70 years old this year. A pair of 810s modulating a pair of originally 4250s with the HTVL swinging link coil and the meters that are positioned just so on a dual set of plexiglass, almost an observation window. I suppose that's what they intended, but it also insulates the entire meter panel from the rack. The screen voltage comes through there for measurement as well. Just a gorgeous rig, and it almost didn't survive. I found it on an index card at one of the local ham radio stores in 1976. A couple of guys settling the estate of one of their friends. And the little card said, potential linear amplifier project. You know, free for the taking. And I said, no. I mean, this guy had all the modules put together, the bud cabinets. All it needed was a wiring harness, really. And with the help of some friends who were more advanced in this part of the hobby than I was in 1976, I completed it, and it's been on the air many years longer than the guy who originally started it. But quit the project when sideband came in. What a shame, right? And then he passed away with the rig never having been completed. So I've kind of taken custody of it in the years since then, and it's been up on 10 meters for a couple of sunspot cycles, so I'm happy about that. And another very, very quick story to respond while I was eavesdropping. Ten-Tech eventually saw the light about including AM on its top-line models, thanks to the prominent AMer, the late Hank, W2IQ, incorrigible quack, who had moved to Dandridge, Tennessee, and was doing some testing and development work for Ten-Tech. And he convinced the executives that AM should be included in their transceivers and saw to it that it was so. So we have Hank there to thank for the more modern view of things at Ten-Tech that included AM. Here comes stuff. WX3K, WA3VJB with the group.
Very nice, Paul. Good to hear you on. Thank you for the compliments on the rig here. Appreciate that. I always like making sure everything is operating the way it should be here. And it continues to. And it looks like switch there, switch there. Good. A little bit of grid tuning now that it's kind of settling in, and the ICO 722, which after, let's see, I got on the air with it in 2010, and it crapped out about a day into the AM transmitter rally this year, so I got 13 years out of it. That's pretty good. 12, 13 years of service before I had to replace the tubes in it. It's still original caps and everything. So the station is holding together. And I'm not much of a car buff, sorry. I own a Jeep now because it's fun to go off-road, and I have also a commuting car. I have my Honda, which is getting up there in mileage, 272,000 miles, and starting to show signs of burning oil. Well, it's been burning oil for a number of years now, and it just seems the consumption keeps going up. Now it's getting really bad. We'll have to keep an eye on that, but it seems to still run okay. Engine lights starting to come on sporadically. And of course, it's very hard to find a car now. You can't just waltz into a car dealership and pick one. You got to order it, and they have this ridiculous markup, this market fee, which is another silly thing. So I'm really scratching my head about whether I should just maybe find another junker with some mileage on it and do that. It's probably they're pulling some really good prices now. Very hard to find a used car on the market too. So got to do something in the next year. I think the Honda's going to need some attention soon. Aside from that, all is good. I have a I guess 10's been open. I've been popping in and out on 10 a.m. Worked an Italian station, Mobile, on 10 meter a.m. one morning, a number of weekends ago. I haven't checked today. I haven't turned the rig on. I did see the DX maps on 10 meters, and it seems pretty active. So, guess we're into a good cycle here, cycle peak, I should say. Janice, over to you. AB2RA. Time for me to sip some latte. It's WX3K.
Yeah, I picked up Pakistan and Kazakhstan this morning. That was another one, not quite as impressive, but I needed it. So, but I've already done DXCC, and I've pretty much over with contesting and DXing. Never had a chance to do it as a kid, downtown Ithaca, Gotham vertical, no ground system, terrible TVI, so confined to 80 and 40 with a Gotham vertical, almost gave the hobby up. But 10 meters has been just so much fun lately, and I'm glad you're up there enjoying it. And that 722 VFO, I've never had a chance to play with one. They look like a pretty solid design, and by reputation, they're a fairly low drift. And the cars, I saw and actually helped a friend work on his Datsun 260Z, the 240, 260, 280Z. Those were very nice cars. Of course, I got into it because I was living in California, going to school out there, and owning a two-seat ragtop was really a great way to get around, and especially like the Sunbeam Tiger was wonderful for long trips on the freeway. That would tool along at 75, 80 all day, and it was just loafing. I used to love to go up to Nevada. I didn't gamble, but they had shows. The food was cheap, and the accommodations were inexpensive, and you could have a lot of fun if you didn't gamble. Yeah, cars are getting to be a problem. Wow. We wrecked ours, hit a deer, and we wound up buying a Toyota Corolla, and we're very, very lucky on the deal. I don't think this whole thing with the electric vehicles is going to work out. There's no place to charge them, and by the time you figure all of the incidental environmental pollution and problems associated with creating the car and the batteries and keeping it charged, I think it's going to be a disaster. WA3VJB, AB2RA.
Well, you may see a video circulating. Somebody has one of the Ford F-150s, and they've pulled over to the emergency lane, and they've got the cover on the back bed pulled back, and somebody, a passerby in another car, has taken their smartphone out the window, and you can hear as they drive by a generator in the back of the pickup truck, and the guy has extended a cable to the charging port on the driver's front fender, and he's given himself a boost, I guess, to get home. And that, to me, sums up the practicality of electric vehicles with today's battery technology. I think it's got some development to go before it can really become something that people can rely on to the extent they do gasoline-powered or diesel-powered cars. I think the hybrid was probably the best prospect because you're self-charging. You know, you don't find your dependency on charging stations when you've got a small engine to charge with. But they seem to be falling out of favor in place of the taking their place is the all-electric vehicle. I don't agree with it. 270,000 miles on a Honda, Stephanie. That's great. I wonder if it's the original clutch. Maybe you've got an automatic. We got 260,000 miles out of the original clutch in a Toyota Camry, a 1995. Because both Pam and myself know how to shift. It was primarily her car. And we never did change a clutch on it. We wound up losing compression on the number 3 cylinder. It was a 4-cylinder engine. And it started losing power, and number 3 cylinder had a problem. So we sold it and got another one, a Mazda 6 that time. And when you think about it, your Jeep is somewhat sporty. I mean, Jeep is owned by Fiat now, which has its Italian heritage. The Abarth is a racing vehicle, and the 124 Sport convertible in those days. So yeah, you can kind of fancy yourself in a more sporty car than maybe you thought with the utilitarian Jeep that normally conjures up. And yeah, I don't have too much interest in the Z cars, Janice. They were the successor to the 2-seater convertible that I have. And unfortunately, Datsun was in its infancy in its marketing prowess in the United States. So there are many, many people who have never heard of a Datsun convertible, let alone seen one. And of course, the Nissan succession, as far as the trade name is concerned, itself is 40 years old now. So they don't even know what a Datsun is, let alone the Datsun convertible subset. But yeah, March 11th matches the model number, SPL 311. Which was the 100 horsepower, and the SRL 311, which was the potentially 150 horsepower iteration of it with a 5-speed. Very nice car indeed. And its descendant was the 240Z, which was even more popular as far as the sales number is concerned, but not the same driving experience by any means. I think you understand that when you mention the ragtop and California all in the same breath. Well, very good. I just wanted to say hello for the most part. Nice to hear both of you on. Very good signals. Janice, I'm on the Super Senior, which is running quite well now that I've got my inverted V with no wire tuner. I think I filled you in on the fact that all it took was a little bit of tarnish on the roller inductor to trip the protection circuitry that Bruce has designed into the Super Senior. And by securing a real 50 ohm load with the angle and the trimming of the antenna and the coax matching to it, the rig's happy. And knock on wood, I suppose, no such failures ever since. And of course, running the RCA console here today, as usual. Back to you, Steph, and I'll listen out for another one here. Got the fireplace going. Pam ran a half marathon this morning, and it was kind of chilly here. It was 40 degrees when she got home. 32 when she set off this morning, just before sunrise at Annapolis. Very good on your hike, by the way. I wondered if you collected any minerals while you were out there, whether that was just a sightseeing excursion by foot. WX3K and the group WA3VJB.
November 2 Yankee Romeo.
Okay, I heard a November 2 Yankee station, very weak here into the Poconos. WX3K, very good pull. Yes, the Honda is an original. I bought it in 2013, an Accord. And I've been using synthetic in it since day one, basically. It's a 6-speed, as is my Jeep. They're both 6 speeds. So that's the extent of my sportiness. I had the sportiness spirit in driving 2 vehicles with a 6-speed in it. And it's the original clutch. So interesting that you mentioned the cylinder going at 260. Yeah, I'm sensing something is misfiring. Whether it's an ejector or I'm losing compression on one of the cylinders, I'm not sure, but I think I mean, it's still running fairly well, but it's kind of lost a little bit. I suspect it's going to need some engine work at some point soon. So we'll have to poke around the market and see what we can find. I really don't want to buy a new car, and an EV, a complete EV, is out of the question for me, I think. I think it's a little too early. Hybrid seems to be more agreeable to me at this point. Just not sure which one. So we'll give it some time, and hopefully prices settle a little bit more, and the parts availability for all chips and everything settles out, so the stock levels come up a little bit. I'm kind of stretching it thin here. I just don't want to hear that it's gotten worse. At that point, it's time to reconsider working a commute and maybe getting a remote job, a complete 100% remote job, which is the next step, I think, if things don't get better. Janice, were you copying the N2 station? Because I surely didn't. Very weak. This WX3K.
Yeah, I got them as N2YR, and it just, hang on a minute. Stephanie, are you signing out here, or are you going to stick around?
I'll stick around for a round or two more. You're kind of fading out at this point. Maybe the band is shifting a little bit, but yes, I'll be here.
Yeah, okay. Well, Paul was going to bail, and I'll turn it over to N2YR, and we'll pick him up. On the hybrid cars, there's the issue of the complexity that you have the gas engine and the electric propulsion and the means to make them coexist, and that results in a lot higher cost of ownership. The AAA compared 5-year cost of ownership of a Prius to a Camry, and it was significantly higher for the Prius. My husband Don had a first generation Prius, and I hated that car more than any car that I have ever driven, including my K car, which I dubbed the unreliant Valdez because it leaks so much oil. Paul, I'm surprised that the roller inductor irritated the DIY rig. I use a tuner with a roller inductor on it with mine, and jump around 75 meters, and I've never had a trip off of that. But you know, maybe I had a little burn or a little pit. And on the Roadsters, part of it was just I appreciated the fine engineering that went into it. The MG, not so much, definitely. The Triumph was a step up, and then I discovered something with a reliable Ford drivetrain, and the body wasn't the typical British car. I mean, you closed the door on that, and it made an authoritative thud, much like you would expect from, say, a Chevrolet Malibu. Anyway, WA3VJB, Paul, pick it up and turn it over to N2YR, and we'll send it around to Stephanie. This is AB2RA.
Okay, Janice, AB2RA, WX3K, and N2YR. That's Joe at Endicott, New York. I didn't hear you, Joe, but I'm surmising and extrapolating that was you. WA3VJB making a transmission. Yeah, well, I agree. The build quality of the Datsun is much better than the British cars of the era. I've had a couple of exotics, well, not exotic so much as just sports cars, including an Austin Healey, 66 Austin Healey, and it was still positive ground in those days. I remember having a aftermarket cassette player in a cardboard box as an insulator that I put on the glove shelf. It wasn't a lidded glove compartment. It was a little shelf underneath the dashboard. I had this cassette deck in a cardboard box to keep it from grounding out against the positive chassis. Ah, yes. And I've had a rather rare car called the Volvo 1800 ES. It's a sport wagon. And I think it was the build quality of the Volvo that really shed an unfavorable comparison on the British build quality. Concurrently, I'd already bought the Datsun, and I knew it was a reliable iteration of much of the British design, right down to the side draft carburetors that were licensed from SU and built by Hitachi. But the car actually was reliable. Negative ground, too, I should point out. And just a great car. As I said, I've had this one 39 years and got my first one in 76. Many trips, many miles across the examples that I've had. And I agree with you on the hybrid complexity. I'm not ready for it yet. And of course, the environmental impact that you cited on your earlier transmission, also true. People tend to forget about that. Just because the charging electricity comes from a central source, a station, a power station, doesn't mean that the generation of that electricity shouldn't be factored into the pollution equation and the aspects that it represents, especially a coal-fired plant. But now they pick up the sales pitch at the dealership and at the charging station, not the source of all that, let alone the lithium batteries that chemistry involved in those and the countries that are donating their minerals to create that technology. Anyway, Joe, I don't know if I'm going to be able to hear you or not. Let me say hello and goodbye. I'm kind of headed for the door here. Janice, nice to hear you on. And by the way, the symptom that it was the roller inductor was the fact I could hear static on receive using the ITT McKay. When I would revolve the control on the roller inductor, I could actually hear some static in the receiver related to the change of induction of the roller. And it doesn't look tarnished, and it doesn't look like there's any burn pit, but there's enough there to tickle it. Maybe it was just the combination of circumstances that the tuner was asked to mitigate that all lined up just the wrong way to tell the protection circuitry no go. All I know now is that with it out of the circuit, everything is high fine business. Stephanie, we look for you again. My pleasure always to hear you on the radio. Joe, here it comes. How is Endicott today? Hopefully I can hear you. I'll be listening out. N2YR and the group from WA3VJB.
N2YR, W2 returning from W3BJB. I know I'm weak, but I have a question for Janice, and I'll make this quick. So, Janice, can you hear me?
You got QSB, and when you're 10 over, I hear you. When you drop to below S5, I can't. But give it a try. AB2RA.
Okay, KB2RA and the group